Hello, I'm Sarah Bowman with the Newport News Department of Communications, and I am here today with Colin Louis from the U.S. Census Bureau and Brian Pierce with the Newport News Department of Planning, and we're here to talk about something big taking place around the country this year, the census.
Yeah.
So it's a big year. Colin, tell us about the census and what's going on.
Yes, you know, we've been doing this as a nation since 1790. So it's been for some years we've been counting our population, and we're not counting for any other reason than to adequately distribute resources. We also use it for redistricting. We use it for apportionment of seats for, House of Representatives. So it's been going on for quite some time, but this is the first year that we'll ever have that we've been doing it online or by phone. And yes, we still have the paper format, but we're asking everyone to do it online or by phone. So you can use your smartphone to respond. You can use a tablet, a laptop. That way is different, but I think it will be better for a more adequate count.
So census numbers influence a lot of different community programs. Can you describe some of them, Brian?
Yes, so one of the most influential programs are our transportation system, so our roads. Every time you hit a pothole and you wish something was done about it, census funding can provide that.
Okay.
Head Start programs, grants for firefighters and wildlife, local business entrepreneurs, there's grant funding available for them.
So can you describe, in addition to the redistricting and the legislative counts, what does the census information support?
It helps in every area throughout, not just Newport News, but throughout this great state and nation. It helps with programs like SNAP, WIC. It helps with Pell Grants. It helps with roads. It helps businesses decide, where do I put my grocery store? Where do I put my business? It is so vital and important, the information. Even for nonprofits, it helps them determine grant applications. All of that data is used for many programs, but those would be some of the big programs that we see that is used to help.
So a lot is riding on the census and the numbers. And it's not just for 1 year. These numbers determine these programs that you were talking about and so much more for the next 10 years.
Yes, we've looked at the estimate the census provided of every person who doesn't fill it out. We lose up to $2,000 per person per year.
Wow.
Which is a lot of money. And so based off of our 2010 census response rate of 72%, the city stands to lose $101 million a year potentially if people do not fill out the census.
$101 million per year.
Yes.
That's huge.
For 10 years.
For 10 years. So how can people, and you mentioned there's lots of different formats, how do people know when it's time to respond?
So on March 12th, we'll begin sending out invitations nationwide for people they'll receive something similar to a postcard in the mail. It'll have a unique identifier to the address, not to an individual, because we're trying to count everyone at that address, regardless of citizenship, regardless of status, regardless of any of that, because what we've learned over time is that regardless of all of those things that people may be in fear of, everyone is using our roads. Everyone uses the same hospitals. We're still seeing children at our schools. And so we want to provide the best and most basic things like a decent education. Some schools have better resources than others, and we can try to figure out a myriad of ways of why. But one of the greatest reasons why is because that particular area is probably not completing their census.
All right, and Brian, you were telling me earlier that some people have said they've already responded to the census, they might have received something in the mail already, and you said no, the census hasn't been distributed. Can you share some information?
Yes, so the Census Bureau puts out many different surveys. This 2020 census is one of several different products they release. And so if you've taken a form recently, it might have been green. It's called the American Community Survey. It's a random sampling. It comes out every year. It's what took the place of the long form of the census.
Okay.
So if there are a lot of questions on it, and again, if it's a green form, that's the American Community Survey. It's still very important to fill that out, but in addition to that, make sure you fill out the census form. And if you receive a paper copy of the census, it will be blue. So just remember, ACS is green, census is blue, fill them both out.
Okay, and the census is 10 questions, the blue form. And again, if people have questions, if they get it in the mail and they're not sure if they've already responded, err on the side of caution, call 311, and just make sure that they are counted.
Yes.
Our greatest desire is for everyone to do it online or by phone.
Okay.
Because that will take place long before we get the forms out.
Okay. And I have heard from some people who we recently had a point in time count for the homeless community, and that's completely separate as well.
Yes. So what we will do is the Census Bureau is on March 30th, 31st, and April 1st. We'll send a group of enumerators out along with the Newport News Police Department to areas that have been identified through our partners of where those experiencing homelessness may currently be. So that's all the shelters, that's any bridge, that's any, wherever they may be on those 3 nights, we'll send out enumerators to count the homeless.
Okay. And if people don't respond to the census, so I get a card in the mail asking me to go online and it gets lost in the stack of things to do, how are you going to follow up with people?
So we'll have several follow-ups after that.
Okay.
You'll receive yet another card that says, hey, you haven't completed it and we're encouraging you to do it. Then there will be a third reminder that will go out. The third reminder will actually have the long paper forms.
Okay.
The paper forms that they can complete the paper, because some people may not desire to do it online or may not want to call, so that's when that'll happen.
Right.
And then we have what we call our non-response follow-ups that will also take place with our enumerators going out door to door, talking to people to say, hey, you didn't complete it, would you like to do it now?
And all of your enumerators, so the people who come to the door, how am I as a resident going to know that they are with the Census Bureau?
Every member of the U.S. Census Bureau should have a ID badge with their name. It should look official by having the U.S. Census on there. But again, we have an area census office in Virginia Beach. They can call there. And we've been working well with all the police departments, including Newport News. So they can even call the police department to say, hey, is this person legit?
Okay.
So we want to, because safety is paramount, we want to make sure that that's first and foremost. We want people to feel safe. So that's why we've been working with the local police departments to ensure the people can feel safe.
Absolutely. And the census doesn't ask for a social security number.
No.
You don't ask for any really personal information other than the number of people living in that residence. Is that correct?
And I believe it asks for the date of birth.
Okay.
But no social security numbers.
Okay.
So if anyone is asking you for your social security number, that is not a census employee, and please call your local authorities, because that's probably a scammer.
Okay.
In addition to that, the census will not email people to ask them to respond. They will also not call people asking them to respond. And again, if you have any questions about, is this legitimate? Is this person at my door really a census worker? They'll have an ID number. You can call our 311 center, which will send us over to the area census operation. And anytime that somebody's coming to people's doors, which will be between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m., there'll be somebody at that office that can verify whether they're a census worker or not.
Great. So there's a lot of safety precautions in place for our residents, as well as the safety workers who are out, or the census workers who are out there counting. And again, if people have questions, take advantage of our 311 contact center. We want to make sure that everyone feels safe responding. And you brought up a really good point that I've heard some of our residents talking about. Is it safe to respond? Because that was a concern for some. So tell us about how the information is protected.
So we have all U.S. Census employees taking an oath. And it's not an oath just for the lifetime of this employment, but it's a lifetime oath. And that oath says that we're going to protect your information. We will not share it with ICE. We will not share it with any other governmental agency. We will not share it with local housing authorities, because we do have issues where we have individuals that are in a lease and it says there's supposed to be 3 people in the house. But we understand that life happens. And so some of our family members may need to stay with us for a short period. We just want to make sure that we count everyone. So if they're living with you, we want to count it. And we want you to trust that that information is not being shared with anyone, because again, the oath that I had to take said that I could be fined $250,000, or spend 5 years in prison. and that's not worth trying to share anyone's information.
Right. And so that's one thing we want all of our citizens to know, is that it's safe to respond,
Yes.
your information is protected, and even if you're not a citizen, even if you are here illegally, we need you to respond to the census. So we're a diverse city. We have some non-English speakers here. How is the census reaching out to those populations?
So when you go online, you'll be able to answer in English or Spanish. If you speak any other language than English or Spanish as your most dominant language and you're not comfortable speaking English while answering these questions, you can call, and we have over 50 languages that are available for people to call in, and they'll get a live person to speak to that they'll be able to help them answer those questions.
Great. And I do know, Brian, some of our residents might not have a computer, they might not be comfortable, and they want a little more support. How is Newport News going to help people respond?
Yes, so we've partnered with our libraries to make sure that every one of them has an area set up so that people can take the census. We've been working with some of our agencies for our seniors so that they can go to those locations and help them fill out the census. And then in addition, we've been going out and reaching out to people, letting them know about the census in both Spanish and English. And there are 13 languages online that people will be able to take it in.
El censo cuenta a todos los que vivimos en este país, incluyendo aquellos que no pensarías que también cuentan. Una persona en el hospital, sí, cuenta. Miguelito que acaba de nacer, sí, Miguelito ya cuenta. Los García y los Álvarez que comparten la misma casa, sí, todos cuentan. El primo Luis que acaba de llegar al país y está viviendo en el garaje de Pedro, también cuenta. El censo cuenta a todos para que a todos nos vaya mejor.
So there's no excuse. People will have the ability, we have the supports here, we just need them to respond.
Yes.
And we're also fortunate that we have CNU here in Newport News, Christopher Newport University, and we have a lot of members of the military, and Fort Eustis is located here. So Brian, can you talk about that community? How should they respond to the census? And Colin, please jump in.
Yes, so for our colleges and our military, if you live in the dorms or if you're on base, you'll respond. It's part of our group quarters count. And so what that means is there's an administrator for that site, and they will count every person at that location as part of the census. So if you're in a dorm, for instance, the university would send that data to the Census Bureau. You will not get a form mailed to your dorm room.
Okay.
Same thing with the military that is on base. Now, if you're going to CNU and you live off campus with your friends, you're at a house, that address will receive a census form, and you should fill that out for the entire house. So it's not just you, it's for you and all your roommates and everyone who lives at that location. Same thing for the military. What's different in years past with our military population is you used to have a base of record. This time, what they're doing is if you were stationed in Newport News, this is where you'll count for the census, so you should fill out the census here.
Okay. And if they have questions, if someone gets the census and they're not sure how to respond, who do they reach out to?
So we'll provide 800 numbers
Okay.
For individuals. We have an area census office over in Virginia Beach that they can contact. Partnership specialists like myself are here in this area that they can also reach out to. But as Brian said, it's very important that our military members remember that regardless of your home of record, regardless of where you vote, regardless of any of that, you're here, your children are using the schools here, and we want to make sure that they have the best schools. Our children are using clinics and hospitals. We want to make sure that you have the best affordable opportunities to do, like every other city. We want you to be comfortable going to a hospital knowing that it has the best equipment and the best doctors. And so that's why we're asking that everyone that lives in Newport News make sure that when you respond, you count yourself here.
Okay. And you mentioned the kids, and I know in 2010 we had some issues in Newport News. We didn't count all the little ones. We were undercounted with children. Brian, can you talk about how important it is for every child, even if it's a little tiny baby, that they're counted?
Yes, so the city of Newport News in our 2010 census, we had the third highest rate of children under 5 not being counted in the Commonwealth, which I just want to let that set in for a second, in the Commonwealth. So it's very troubling to see that, because the children today, if they're 5, in 10 years they'll be 15. So that's 10 years of resources that we're not getting funding allocated for, that we potentially could be if parents are filling out the census for their child. If you have a child on April 1st, make sure you put them on your census form. They count. If you're a grandparent and you're raising kids at your home, they should count for your census. And we just want to make sure that every child is counted. So we've been working with our local food banks, our local schools, our local medical facilities to make sure they can help spread the word about it and the importance of making sure that everyone at that address is counted.
Okay. And Brian, walk me through. I am a Newport News resident and I get information in the mail from the census. Kind of walk me through one more time so everybody understands, what do I do when I receive this mailer?
So if you receive the mailer and you wonder if it's legitimate, because that question comes up a lot, the first thing I would do is encourage you to call our 311 center.
Yes.
So we've done training with them about the census. They will have all of the 800 numbers that are listed. Instead of making our citizens and residents go to a bunch of different places, just call 311 and they'll direct you where you need to go.
Perfect.
Once you're positive and you're confident in that form, if you have access to the internet, either from your phone, a computer, whatever device, you'll log into the census, put in your address, and it's 10 questions this time. In years past, there's been a long form of the census and a short form. There's no longer a long form.
Okay.
So it's going to be very quick 10 questions, basic information like race, sex, and then people who live in your household.
Okay. So again, there's no excuse. Everyone should take the time to respond. It's not going to take a large chunk of your day, and it is vitally important for our city going forward. Now, if people want to get involved, they understand how important it is for Newport News, how can people help encourage others to be part of the census?
So we've done a lot of outreach already as a city, giving presentations. If you're with an organization, let us know. You can call 311. We have a sheet there that are tracking presentations that people have requested, and we'll come to your organization. We've also developed a website, so nnva.gov/census. On our website, we have information about the census. We have a digital toolkit. We have flyers and rack cards on there, social media posts that you can put out so that you can help work with your people to let them know about the census. What we've found is that the city can come and tell you the importance of taking the census, and the government can tell you that you're required by law to fill out the census. And those have impact, but it's not the same thing as that trusted voice, that trusted organization coming to you and telling them about the impact the census has on their funding and what they're able to do. And so we've reached out to over 300 organizations to be a part of our Complete Count Committee and help spread the word. Right now we have over 80 active organizations that we've given presentations to and flyers with to help make sure that every person in Newport News knows about the census.
Great. And Colin, what are some lasting impressions, what are some final words that you want to leave people with about the census?
The main thing I want people to know is that it is safe. It is easy to complete. Your information will be kept confidential. And most of all, we're helping ourselves by doing this, because we complain about small things, roads. I do presentations and people say, well, I wish I had this in my area. And a lot of it is because we don't have the population in that area to justify having something. And sometimes that can be something as small as a park. But if we're not counting our children, it wouldn't really make sense to put a park in an area with a children population according to the census information that's too small to support. So it's just like we say a lot, your voice matters, your voice counts, and you should ensure and make sure that you're counted, because you being counted helps not just the city of Newport News, but it helps you directly.
Absolutely.
I just would encourage everyone to go out, even if you don't feel like taking it this year. Think about the impact, because we get one chance. If you're sick that day, or you're sick that month, or let's say you just don't feel like it's important right now. 5 years, it may be important to you when you're applying for Medicaid, or when your child's trying to get into Head Start. It may be important for your neighbor. So again, we get one shot. It's 10 years before we can take it again. And when you look back at the data of $101 million per year for 10 years, it's a lot of programs that can be funded over 100 different programs that are funded using census money. So think about the long-term impact that it has on you, your neighbors, the community, and just remember how important it is to spend that 5 minutes to answer 10 questions.
Right. Well, thank you both for being here today and sharing the importance of the census. And Newport News residents, let's make sure that our city counts. Be sure to check your mailboxes in March when the census information comes out. If you have questions, rely on the resources that the city has available. Call 311 at 311 or 933-2311 or visit nnva.gov/census and make sure that you count and that every person in your household is counted this year. Thank you all for tuning in today, and thank you both for being here.
Thank you so much for having us.